Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to take a look at the April Smart Art Box, and you can subscribe to them at smartartbox.com. Let's take a look at what is in this month's box. So we've got our lovely fancy tissue paper, like you're unwrapping a present, and in every box you get a brochure or pamphlet. It basically gives you a project, and it tells you something about the products that are in the book. So it'll give you a brief overview of what we're going to learn, which is hand lettering, and it'll talk about the products, give you some tips and tricks, and then provide you with a project on the back. So, we've got some goodies in here today. We have the Tombow Beginner Lettering Set, and it looks like there's a couple dual brush pens, which I'm familiar with these because I've been using them in my rubber stamping projects for probably a couple decades. It's a tried and true brand. There's a 4H pencil. We have a, I think a permanent marker and a calligraphy pen and an eraser. So, so that's great. There's also the website address for Tombow where they have wonderful worksheet downloads. If you don't have any books or anything to go by, they're really, really helpful. The next thing we have in here is some Niji Watercolors, and I'm actually familiar with this because back when I used to teach at my local senior center, this is one of the watercolor brands that we had on hand, so this will be a nice blast from the past for me to play with. And we have a number 4 Snap Princeton Round. These brushes are great and they're very inexpensive, so if you're ever looking for some really inexpensive golden tack-on brushes, the Snap by Princeton is a tried and true brand, very inexpensive and gets the job done. And this is a Hammer Mule hand lettering book, and I've never used any paper by Hammer Mule, and I've heard really good things, especially about their watercolor papers, but I have never experienced working on it, so I'm kind of curious to that. Oh my gosh, it feels like silk. It is so smooth. That's going to be really, really fun to work on. I wonder how it's going to do with the watercolors, though. The paper is a decent weight. Oh, and look, you've got some little guidelines here. It gives you some ideas on how to do your it gives you 10 hand-drawn fonts right here on the pad of paper. So let me just show you what this is called in case you missed out on this month's box and you want to check it out. This is hammermule.com. It looks like D-37586 if you're looking for this particular book, but 25 sheets. I love that it's got a small little hand-lettered example there. They're all uppercase, which is kind of a bummer. It'd be nice if they were lowercase too, but ooh, it feels so so luxurious. So without further ado, let's try to do some brush lettering. I'm beginning by putting some paint out on my palette so I can work with it. Now, when you're using liquid watercolors, if you've never used them before, you want to make sure that you just put a tiny little bit out because it's a lot stronger than like pan watercolors, and you might end up wasting a bunch if you take too much. Now, you can let it dry and reactivate it later. That's totally fine. But if you were working on a plate or a palette that you want to use for something else, and you'd have to clean it off. So I would just recommend taking out a tiny little bit to begin with and adding more if you need to. But I have a feeling that a little is going to go a long way. I'm going to take out every color except for black and white. That seems to have separated a little bit. Sometimes that happens, so I'm just giving that a little bit more because that juicy thing, there's no pigment in that, so that's not going to give me any color. And since we have a black pen, that's why I'm not putting out the black, and the paper's white, and that's why I'm not putting out the white. Alright, we've got a nice assortment of colors there. I'm also going to open up my pens here, and it looks like, oh yeah, you'll be able to store your pens and pencils back in the clamshell packaging if you want to. Now, it also says there's a lettering guide enclosed. Oh, that must be the paper thing at the beginning, in the front of the package. Let's take out our pens here and see what we got. So there's our pens and our eraser. This is a white vinyl eraser. I do have some others of those. I'm not sure if I'll open that one up since I already have one open and right to the side of me. And oh, and it just gives you kind of like a basic guide on how you press hard going down and you lift up when you come up. There's not an alphabet in there, but it does give you an idea of what each of the tools does in the kit, so that's kind of handy to have. Let's open this bad boy up, and oh, it feels so good. We are going to, let's just test out the pens. So I am familiar with this type of pen. So when you are doing any sort of brush lettering, and I am by no means an expert, you want to press down hard as you're making your downstroke, but then you're going to lift as you start to come up again. So if I wanted to do the letter A, I would press down pretty firmly and then lift up. Press down for the back of the A and lift up. Now as I would go through and make my letters, I would try to make sure that I kept my my like the staff, I think it's called, of each of the letters, like what do you want to call it, parallel, so that it would just look neater. But like I said, I am not a professional. I am, you know, I just try to make legible letters for the most part. So something that you probably are going to want to do, oh, and I'll just show you, this side is a bullet tip. That's not going to really give you a difference of line. That's going to be the same thickness no matter what you do, because it's a firm, hard tip. Whereas the brush is flexible, so you would be able to get a flexible line. Let's look at the gray and see what the gray looks like. So you go up light, down heavy, up light, down heavy. So those are some like tricks you can do. You could practice holding your pen different ways to see what works best for you. You do have to press pretty firmly, which is something that I was hesitant to do because I thought I would damage my pen, but you do have to actually press kind of firmly. Let's take a look at this guy. I think this is the waterproof one. That's my penmanship right there, folks. Actually, that's pretty good for how my penmanship usually looks. And then that's the fine tip. So we've got a bullet and a fine there. I'm curious about this guy. This is a flexible calligraphy pen, so this is meant for calligraphy. So let's take a look at this guy here. Huh. Oh, that's easy. That's a lot easier to write with this than with the brush pen. Let me write my name. I always look like a third grader trying to write my name in cursive. Alright, it's nothing to write home about, but you can do some exercises there. Now on a calligraphy paper like this, obviously there's no lines on it. You'd probably want to put like a, oh, you know what? Why don't we put like a lettering guide under it? I printed off some of these because I thought that might be useful. Let's see if we can see through the paper enough to use one of these. Now this is from the Tombow website. They have a lot of great resources and tutorials. So you definitely, I can see the lines, but I can't see the letters. But that's all right. Let me just try being able to see the letters. This is sized for this brush pen here. I'll try a G because I can see the G right there. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong pen. That is the permanent marker. Boy, that feels different. You can get used to this really easily, I would say. So let's see. Am I in frame? Okay. I can see this is going to take a lot of practice. I'm very herky-jerky with the, that looks like a Y with a little line across it. But there's definitely enough resources online that you can get going with either the pens from this kit or what you happen to have at home already. So I want to just play. I want to have some fun. And done here is really fun. I like that there's lettering and watercoloring. I was thinking maybe trying to do kind of a smaller little sentiment in the middle than doing a wreath around it. So a springtime wreath because I'm done with winter. So let me just get set up and we will do that.
Okay, we're going to keep it real here for this brush lettering demo. I sped it up because, quite frankly, it was really hard to watch. I traced a mason jar to get my circle shape. That's going to be the wreath. And then I grabbed a ruler thinking, I'm just going to put a few lines here, write some words. It's going to be all fine and cherry wine. However, I quickly ran into problems with drawing lines. Apparently, I can't draw a line. I can't draw a straight line. I can't draw a line that's evenly spaced is my problem. So second try was a little bit better, but once I started to write, you're going to see that I do have trouble with this. So I printed out Oh Happy Day onto some computer paper just using Google Docs and one of the free brush script fonts that were available in there. And I'm just looking at those words as I'm trying to draw the words on my paper because I don't have practice with this and I am the first to admit that I am not good at this. I figured drawing my letters was the best bet. You can see my spacing was, my lines weren't right, but I was able to space it out. Then I thought, why am I doing this? It'd just be so much easier to trace it. So I drew my circle and put the paper behind the paper, that my printout behind my good paper, and decided to trace it over. And it was a little better, but then I noticed that my spacing on what I printed wasn't that great, and it was too much between the O and the happy, so I wasn't happy with that either.
I'm a big fat cheater. I went downstairs and used my light box, and that's the best rendition thus far. So I totally encourage you to learn how to do this properly, but if you don't want to, get a light box. Works wonders. Or I guess you could use a bright window. Okay, so now that the hard part's done, and you've learned absolutely nothing about brush lettering, nor have I, we can get on to the fun part, which is going to be making our watercolor wreath. So I think I will start off by maybe making a few little flowers. So I've got some different reds here. I think we'll add a little water. Oh, that's a pretty color. It's kind of like a corally red. I don't know if this is going to be able to take very much water, so I'm just going to do some simple little stroke roses here. Actually, I'm getting a really crisp design. I wonder if I can add a little bit more water. Oh, I think so. Oh yeah, that's working all right. Boy, this is interesting paper. I wonder what it's made out of. Look at that. I can water that right down. It's not feathering or anything. Well, that's kind of fun. So basically what I'm doing here is, oh, I think I want to start with a waterier mix. I am doing just kind of like little comma strokes with some watered down paint, then picking up some more intense paint and just dropping it in. Things do not have to be perfect, obviously. It should look hand done. And then I think I'll put a little bit of yellow in the centers, and if it bleeds into the petals, that's totally fine. And just give it a drop in there, let it float. Okay. I'm trying to see if my paper is rippling. It doesn't seem to be rippling too bad. Now I think I'm just gonna do some just little like leafy vines. So what I think I'll do is just, this brush isn't that fine for vines, but it's fine for leaves. So just put a couple little like comma strokes, so you just kind of press and lift. It's easier to do them when you're pulling them towards yourself, so let me just move this here. I'm going to draw out a line for the stem. Move my palette over. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. And then take your brush, make sure you have enough water on there so that your bristles will hold together, so they don't want to spread apart. And then you want to just kind of press and lift. Press and lift. And the more you press, the bigger your leaf will be. But this is just a small brush, so you're not going to get a huge a huge leaf. But if you work that pattern around, you're going to get a really nice look. It's all about repetition. The same thing with with calligraphy, so I'm told, you know, you just keep repeating the same, like you want the same parallel on your lines. You can also pull in those strokes sideways and make your leaves go that way. And I'm just going to keep working around in the circle here. I really like the look of the watercolor on that paper. It's kind of nice. It has a very fresh look. See, if you have your brush at an angle and you press and you pull in, you do get a wider leaf that's kind of pretty too. And since we have our guideline of our circle, it's going to keep all of our little painting looking nice and neat. If you have a liner brush, I would grab that liner brush and I would do your stems out with a liner. And you want to work with your brush kind of straight up and down when you want those really fine lines. It's very similar to what you do with the pens. You press down more for a wider line, and you lift up with for a narrower line. I see how how the brush lettering could be very similar to painting. So then I would turn it around and do the same thing on this side, except I think I'll maybe mix a little bit of blue into that, maybe a little bit of that Prussian blue, and get a darker leaf. And don't, like I said before, don't put out too much paint because you might not be able to use it up. And maybe I'll just do something like that on that side. Maybe a little more blue. That doesn't really stand out very much. I think that green is kind of overtaking it. I'm just going to go over that little bit there. And by moving your paper, you're much more likely to get the same stroke each time because you are you're pulling, you're just doing the repetition there. Okay, and then see how, because I didn't start off doing that, and then these guys here look a little different, so I think I'll just put a couple other leaves in there. Now I think it might be fun to maybe put some little berries or something. I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. So why don't we make some purple? We'll take some cobalt blue. I'm just going to turn my palette around to a fresh space. See if we can make a good purple with the cobalt blue and this cooler of the two reds. Oh, that's kind of pretty. I also think because this is an Eastern watercolor, it's less likely to fray on your, not to fray, but to pill your paper. So I'm going to do this little tiny, it's kind of like a little U, or like a semicircle would be better, with little dots. I don't know if I really like that, but I've already done it, so I'm going to keep doing it. Just repetition. You do it once, it's a mistake. If you do it over and over again, then it's part of your design. Yeah, I hope it dries a little. I might, actually, I'm going to blot that first one because that's a little dark, and I kind of like the softer colors I was getting. So if that happens, just make sure, don't rub it, just blot it, and look how you can take out the excess pigment and just lighten it up. I really like the yellow. I think that's really sweet looking, so I think that maybe I'll just do some just suggested little, maybe like buttercups or just something really sweet and light like that. And so I'm just gonna just do little dabs between those elements. If there's not that much room, then skip it. Just move to the next one. But it's all about balance. So, you know, we're human. Everything's not going to be perfect. Everything's not going to be perfectly spaced. So just go ahead and fill in where you think you need it with some little dabs of yellow. I'm going to grab some of that kind of springy green and some of that Viridian. I just want to make a lighter color. Now we're doing this all with one brush and very little skill here. These are just little dabs and strokes. You do not need to, know a lot to do this. You can, print off the letters. I just went in Google Docs. That's free. Everyone has access to that if you have a computer. And I just found a font that I liked to write in Google Docs for free, and I just printed off the Oh Happy Day. And I'm just painting in little leaves, just kind of little rant, rant. That's all it is. Two little strokes, rant, rant. And it's just it's colors that we've been using, but just combined differently, and we're just filling it in. This is kind of pretty. I'm kind of pleased with this. At first it was a hot mess, and now I would put this on a card. I would totally put this on a card and send it to a friend. Before, I would put it on a card and send it to an enemy, because those looked awful. This would actually go to a friend. I don't send cards to my enemies. I don't really have any enemies, to tell you the truth. None that I know of, anyway. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that, that dislike me. Oh well. Not gonna worry about that. Nothing you can do about it. Hey, I like that. That looks pretty sweet. Okay, so maybe one other thing I would do is maybe take a little bit of brown, and this might be a horrible mistake. So, we'll see how it turns out. I'm taking a little bit of brown, just really watered down. And I think I'll just kind of maybe put in some little vines. And that way I can maybe get by without having to erase my lines that I put in there originally. I mean, it's not a big deal. Just make sure it's completely dry before you go to erase it so you don't end up smudging any of your pretty watercolors. But look at that. I think that is so cute. This actually, I have to say, this was really fun. And I know I say that about a lot of these Smart Art boxes, and I was like, oh, this is my favorite so far. I don't know if this is my favorite so far, because I've never been one to really be that good at hand lettering, nor have practiced it. But I love that little wreath. I thought it was a lot of fun to make. I enjoyed it. I did go ahead and print out some of the lettering guides from Tombow, and they have so many good resources for free on their website and blog. I would highly recommend checking that out if you're interested. Even if you're not buying any of the products and you're not subscribing to the box, it's free for everybody. So go check it out. You probably have some supplies at home that you can work with, because some of them they're using just a regular pencil. So I would definitely recommend giving that a try. I already know I love these markers because I have a lot of dual brush pens, but I have to say I've got Tombows that are old, that I've had for probably about 10 years, that I bought secondhand, that are still working. So the tips on these really can hold up to the brush lettering. Some markers may fray their brush tips, so yeah, you can definitely trust the Tombow brush tips. I don't know if there's going to be any of these boxes available. Sometimes they have leftovers at the end of the month and they'll sell them at smartartbox.com, but other times they don't. So I think it's pretty easy to find these supplies if you can't get this box. And I think this was a really thoughtful, well put together box. I had a lot of fun with it, more fun than I thought I was going to, and I just think this is so sweet. I could totally cut this out and put this on a 6x6 card. In fact, I think I probably will. And you know what? I might actually practice my letters, because it was really fun just kind of playing with that pen downstairs on my light box.
Tracing is a good way to learn drawing, so I imagine it's a good way to learn lettering too. That's what I'm going with anyway. If I can make pretty letters by tracing them with my light tablet and then make a fancy wreath around it, I'm all in. That is fine with me. And there are so many resources like these printable sheets from Tombow. They also have them sized larger for the dual brush pens. Plus there are books at your library. So many different resources out there if you want to try. You can use the pens that you have, but if you're curious about getting a box of art supplies to your door every month, check out smartartbox.com. They have different subscription packages to choose from. You can go month to month, or you can do a multi-month subscription, and you save a little money when you go for a longer subscription time. They also ship throughout the world, so your country is probably on their list of countries they ship to, so you can check that out. It's a lot of fun, but go ahead and try it with whatever you have at home. All you need is a little plate for little watercolors if you want to do the wreath. If you don't have a watercolor palette, you can even scribble water water-based markers onto a tile and pick that up with a brush to do these techniques as well. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this fun little tutorial, please give me a thumbs up and let me know what you think in the comments below. Have a great day. Until next time, happy crafting.